CindyLaverty.com. Welcome back. You're listening to the Cindy Laverty Show on CRN Digital Talk Radio, and I thank you for joining me today. My guest is Jeannie Kerrigan. She is the author of Layla, which is her autobiography to date. And it's as I said before, it's a tough book to read, but I think it's a world that most of us are not familiar with, and yet Jeannie makes it very, very real. So, Jeannie, it's great to have you here today.
Thank you.
All right. So, you were a runaway kid, sex, drugs, abuse, rape. What am I missing?
Guns, pimps.
Okay, so each set of circumstances in this book throughout your life builds on the next one. And I guess as I was reading this, is this common? Is this what happens to most of the kids who are on the streets, who are living on the streets, who have run away from home?
I don't necessarily want to speak for the children that are out there on the streets now. Now my heart is tore up with what children are living with on the streets. We didn't have meth then. We didn't have a lot of the things that take kids down very quickly. So
Black tar,
again,
heroin, all of that.
I am 52. I was on the streets in the 70s and then went back to the streets as an adult, so there was a little bit of both for me. But is it horrible? Yes, it's horrible if you think about a child crawling into an alley, finding newspapers or whatever it is that they need to cover up, to not be seen, and they're shivering, scared to death. Imagine 12, 8, 7, 6, 5, trying to find a place to be safe within an unsafe world. I mean, and I think that happens in the big cities and it happens in the little. I slept in the back of grocery stores because I figured out that it was warm.
Right.
And just for me to figure out that there was a warm place on the streets was kind of a big deal.
Well, throughout the book, you talk about not allowing your heart to connect with your circumstances. That was such a powerful statement for me. Tell us a little bit about how that was for you. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, but you didn't allow your heart to connect with your circumstances. So was it like an out-of-body experience for you, or?
It was difficult for me to write that part because in some places, yes, there was an out-of-body experience. When my father was raping me, when he was in my bedroom at night, and I was 4 or 5, people would say I disassociated. I would say that the spirits reached down and grabbed my hand and pulled me out of that body and didn't let me go back until the pain was over.
Right.
That's how it felt for me. My heart did not connect to the actual physical ravaging that was going on with my body. My mind would take it. My mind would take it. My brain would take it, if that makes any sense to anybody.
Yes.
When I was raped the very first time I was on the streets and I was raped, and it was that brutal from the backside rape, my mind couldn't take it. My mind went crazy. But my heart, I would put this little box.
At 12 years old?
I always tell people, even as a therapist, when I later became an alcohol and drug therapist, I'd say, just put it in a little box for a minute, just for a minute. And it's not going anywhere. It's going to stay right there. But just that imagery of putting it in a little bitty box, and I would hold it, and I had my Ricky doll. For the most of the time, I had my little Ricky monkey, and my little Ricky monkey would just go right there.
And you tell us about who your little Ricky monkey was. We'll get into Ricky later on, but Ricky was a big
deal for me.
For
Imagine I'm 12, so I'm not that far from my Barbie dolls. I'm not that far from, needing everything from my parents. So I'm on the streets, and I stole in a store a little monkey, a stuffed monkey. And his name was Ricky. Actually, on the tag, his name was Ricky. So he was tiny enough for me to tuck into my jacket or under my arm. And because of the places that I was going, I was instantly in a life with adults and streets. And so Ricky was my saving grace. Ricky was my heart protector. I would talk to him. I would be like, okay, Ricky's here. I'm good. I can go. And
he was your comfort.
He was my comfort. He was my stuffed animal. He was, my teddy bear. He was my like all children have.
Well,
a
he
little bit of
probably
comfort.
became like the mother figure, to you. The couldn't talk back, but was just that comfort, that support.
It was a way for me. He was a way for me to verbalize what was going on. I would be, say, in that generator room in the back of a grocery store going, I'm scared. And I would be crying. And Ricky would see my tears, but nobody else on the planet would.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I get it. It's really powerful. And then when you lost Ricky,
I lost Ricky in a very rough way.
That was really horrible.
That story is, well, it's kind of a long story. It's in the book. I was a runaway from a girls' home. Of course, I evolved into girls' homes and institutions. And I was a runaway from a girls' home, and Ricky and I actually had gone with 3 other girls, and we did the hitchhiking thing from Wisconsin down to Florida. And we hitchhiked through truckers, which is an easy ride back then, but a little bit dangerous. So we all got into a trucker. I didn't know how dangerous. I constantly say over and over, I was pretty naive.
You were a little girl.
I got streetwise, but I didn't. But it took me quite a while. So,
is that because you think maybe you always wanted to trust that someone was going to just sort of come in and be kind to you and not fulfill what was obviously expected?
I wish it was like that. I wish that I felt like I wanted to trust, but no, I didn't.
Okay.
It was a little bit different than me. I would,
I can only go from my perspective.
I got you. I didn't feel trust from a lot of different people. My naivety, my lack of education, my lack of knowing what I was walking into.
Right.
That was what caused a lot of my trouble.
Yeah.
I had to get really good at seeing my peripheral view, and I didn't at first. I just saw the trucker and a ride.
Trucker was the ride.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter what was happening inside that truck.
No, and then all of a sudden what was happening inside that truck, it was like, oh,
was
my
a nightmare.
God, do you see what's happening here? I look at that now, those experiences made me very wise.
Yeah.
Very, very good healer. I have used all of that. I can now scan a room. I can now scan your body. I mean, it's not my only teachings. Obviously, I went to school and things, but it was a great teacher for me. But initially, I was naive. I was very, very Catholic. I was in a Catholic church in a Catholic grade school, and I was taught one way. I knew there was something else out there.
Right. Right.
So when I got in the truck, it was like, okay, these 2 girls have to, he gave us the story, and he said, these 2 girls got to go with another trucker. We can't have 3 girls in the truck, DOT rules. So you stay with me, Jeannie. And I did, Layla. And the other 2 girls went with another trucker, a ride that he arranged. Now, this was somewhere in Illinois, and we were going to Florida. So, of course, he said, go in the back and get some rest. We drive at night. This is how we do it. And I want you to stay up, and I want you to keep me company. And he was all nice, bought us lunch. No sooner was I in the back of his cab taking a nap than he had me tied up. He raped me initially.
And how old were you when this happened?
16.
16.
Almost 17. This was my 3rd or 4th rape. But this one was brutal. This one was bound, gagged, and held captive. So at the end, what happened was, this is...
We have 30 seconds.
We have 30 seconds. His muffler blew loud on the highway, and he had no choice but to pull over and get me another ride and get me out of there, or he would have been busted.
Oh, my gosh. All right, stay with us. You're listening to Cindy Laverty Show. I'll be right back with Jeannie Kerrigan and her book, Layla.